Sports Talk Chicago. Here with Jon Zaghloul, and we are back and ready for today's special guest. He's a seven-time All-Star, current Baseball Hall of Fame candidate, and the head baseball coach at the Miller School. Please welcome Billy Wagner to the program. Billy,
Hey,
great
John.
to have you on. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
So, how was the past year coaching?
Well, it's any coaching right now is defined by COVID protocols and stuff. Uh, it has not been the easiest time for any coach. But we got to play baseball, so it's been fun.
You guys had a 15-5 record last year. How'd that come together?
Well, we got beat by the same team 5 times, not 5 times, but there was two teams, the state champion and the runner up. For a team like ours, but we got to play. It was good to get back on the field and play competitively.
What was your strength as a team? What did you gauge to be your guys' strength?
Well, our pitching is pretty strong. We've been very fortunate in that, but we've had some strong bats that arrive and stuff like that. At this point, for like moving into this year, our strengths probably more offensively than on the mound. So the defense will be good, but pitching that may be an issue.
How do you feel about that as a legendary pitcher yourself?
Well, I wasn't very good when I was in a lot of those areas and stages. I think it's fun to, have to work and put in more time and, talk to these kids about, the accountability and the commitment to their craft, because at this point, everybody plays 2-3 positions, and, all of a sudden you start to limit their positions. And so, for get them ready for college. So, once they learn how to really focus on one thing and stay focused, they usually improve dramatically. So hopefully that'll make those big jumps over this winter.
What's the sort of philosophy you preach to your kids as a coach?
Uh, you know, I mean, fun is winning, but competing, and it's really just showing up and competing. It's not, I don't base our success on wins, because the kids need to understand that development at this point is the higher goal for me. The winning is their part. I don't win, I don't lose, I don't keep track of my record. It's more on what they want to accomplish and their commitment to their team. And so, we let captains, and it's up to the captains to guide the team with guidance. And we try to play a heavy load for a high school in Virginia, and just get reps and experience.
What's the biggest challenge in coaching kids at this age level?
They don't know how to evaluate themselves, and neither do their parents. I mean, I have been very blessed to have great parents at the Miller School. They allow me to coach and guide, so that's been great. I can't complain about really the parents. But they don't know how to evaluate. Social media has really created a tough situation for these kids. I mean, a 14-year-old who signs a letter of commit to a school, the next 14-year-old thinks he's got a sign, or he's behind. And letting them understand that learning the game and developing it will help them get to a place they need to be and what fits them, and last, and be able to participate when they get there. And it's hard for them right now. It's so hard for them.
How rewarding is it to develop these kids and also to give back yourself, knowing that you played in the major leagues for so many years?
Well, my high school coach, Coach Luke Perry, who passed away a little over a year ago, was a huge influence for me. He taught me that you've got to be patient with kids. You got to be understanding. You got to be a mentor. And that all the things that he was for me, that helped me to learn. And then my experience playing that, realizing and understanding this game is really hard, and to go out there and expect things that you watch these professionals do is not right. And so allowing these guys to be excited during the game, learn the etiquette of the game, let them but as a coach you have to mentor, counsel, hug them, then you got to kick them in the butt, then you got there's so many roles as a coach nowadays, because not a lot of people want to take the accountability of their kids. So I'm the one that plays good guy, I'm the one that plays the bad guy, because there's a point where you have to be, there's a point where I got to tell these kids, hey, you may not go to play at this level, because there's not a kid that comes to my program that doesn't go, well, I want to play at UVA or I want to play at Vanderbilt or Ole Miss. And so you're sitting there going, well, I'm not going to, be the one to tell you, but it'll be a time where you kind of see the writing on the road. And I mean, I've been very blessed because I've had a ton of talent that's went on to play pro ball. But something that's going to stand out possibly for me is I'm coaching a girl, Naomi. I just straight lost her last name. That she'll kill me. Naomi Ryan. I should know it. Her brother played at a high school and beat us to death. But this young lady is playing with the USA team. She's a left-handed pitcher. She is, those are the things that being a baseball coach is really gratifying because she's driven. And, not many coaches will let a girl play on a high school team, but she came to me and said, I said, what's your goal? She goes, I want to be the first girl to play Major League Baseball. And I'm like, I know, and she knows how difficult that would be just for a male to be able to get there. So a female is, but I'm not going to be that coach that sits and goes, you can't do that. But she's so driven, and that's being a coach and fueling that love for the game and allowing her to really reach for her dreams with the understanding that we're here to help her, not sit here and tell her she can't. And, those have been the gratifying things, and watching the late bloomers and stuff. I just enjoy coaching.
That's something that's different. A lot of coaches today will kind of get in the way, or maybe they'll, put themselves over the team. It sounds like from your perspective, more so just about development and helping out any way you can.
Well, I like learning. I think the kids teach me so much about the game that it's real easy for a professional to come back and go, that's not important. But, it's the little things that are really important at this stage for these young men and women, that showing them that, the guidance of playing the game, doing it correctly, the details. And the kids will tell you firsthand that, I have a word each season. And for this season, it's details. You got to have the small things will make the big things easier. So, creating a culture and a structure that allows people to be comfortable, to be successful. And, a good coach's job is to put them in successful situations. Now, it won't always be that easy, but when you give them that building block, and then you do put them in a tough situation, they already know that you have faith in them. And so win, lose, or draw, they understand the game. And so that's what a high school coach's job to do. My job's not to go win. My job doesn't require me to win or go home. That's a college and pro coaches. And so, but for them to get to that point, to play for a solid college program or something, they need to know how the fundamentals so that when they get there, they can make that jump and transition.
Would you ever make a jump to college or pro coaching?
Oh, I don't think I could babysit in pro ball anymore. I don't know if I would. I've been there, and I feel bad for coaches because, you think about it. What are you going to tell that guy that's making $100 million? There's a point where every guy has a guru. When you're talking, it's hard for them. Most organizations don't even want their older players being involved anymore because of the metrics and things like that. So, it's fun to talk to players, but my oldest son just got drafted by the Astros. And so now he's a hitter. And so when you have that conversation, it's like, the game's changed to numbers instead of gut feelings and things like that. And so the game's changed. Now, college, it may be something, but I still really enjoy developing. And, I don't like the limitations that the NCAA puts on colleges to develop. Most Power Fives, if you're not a minor league system, you're going to get fired. And winning, I want development. I want the kids to love the game, to play the game the right way. That'll lead to wins. I want to be able to sit there and have a conversation with them. And today's systems doesn't really allow you to have a conversation.
Billy Wagner here on Sports Talk Chicago. Billy, what do you make of your Hall of Fame case?
Better than it was. I think, I'm trending in the right direction. I still think I'm really behind the 8 ball. I think it's, it would be I won't say monumental, but I do think that, it'd be very difficult. I think there's a lot of, debate on 97 innings and a limited playoff record. I think there's a lot of conversation in that pretty much, drags it down.
Do you think that's fair?
No, I don't. I mean, statistics, what's fair with a guy having 350 wins and a guy having 240 wins or winning 4 Cy Youngs? What's the difference between those guys? I mean, I think the playoff record, is icing on the cake. I mean, I would have loved to have been, I know my ERA was pretty dismal, but I think I was only in 4 or 5 games where they were meaningful with a 1-1 record, 2 and 3 with saves. So, it wasn't like I had, 25 save opportunities or, you can't get a save when you're down by 10. You just can't. I've tried. You can't create saves. I've tried that too. I mean, there's just a lot of things that you can't do. And, numbers, my ERA could have been better, but when you pitch 1 inning, you give up 1 run. I mean, you start it with a 9. And if that's the only thing you get, so I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at it, but, I think it's the bulk of your career. I mean, how were you on the whole? I think that's, and I think it's your error. I mean, I think, and I was speaking to some guys yesterday about, you can't look at me the same way you look at Goose. You can't look at Raleigh the same way. You just can't. You can't look at Eck and these guys. I mean, it's just different guys do different things. And, from here in probably 10, 15 years, the save's going to be different. Starting pitching is going to be different because they're not even allowing them to go 4 innings most time and they switch. So wins and losses are going to change. So how do you create that value? I mean, so I think the bulk of your work right now has to dictate it. And, what I also think it would be probably something is being able to talk to peers. I mean, ask the players who are difficult and the players who, good players know who good players were. I mean, is it really hard to think that Barry Bonds, A-Rod, Ortiz, Clemens, them are no brainers. I mean, I think, Todd Helton, those are guys that, to me, Andrew Jones, I think they were difference makers in baseball. I think you need to talk to them. Who, what was their thoughts? Or talk to the Hall of Famers, Derek Jeters, the Griffeys, the guys like that had competitions against these, and what was their thoughts? I think that would go a long way. I think the guy that's in California is not going to know Billy Wagner. He's not going to have any idea from the West Coast. I mean, the Central Division, where I pretty much made my career before going to the Phillies and Mets. I mean, those were, the San Diegos, they don't know me. I don't know if I get a vote from California. I really don't. I don't think, because it's just a very limited what they get to see me, and it's ESPN snippets and stuff like that. And so you don't really get to see or hear or have that conversation with me to know who I am and what's real and what's not real.
I don't know if you know this, but you have a lower ERA, lower WHIP, and more strikeouts than Trevor Hoffman. Your WAR is right there with him too, if we want to talk sabermetrics. What's that mean to you?
Well, I mean, to me, that, from a Hall of Fame standpoint, I mean, that's that's what you're supposed to look for. I think that, the innings is what gives everybody the crutch to say that I'm not valued. Where, let's if my numbers are that good with less innings, what's the difference with the next 97 innings? I mean, is the next 97 innings really the part that's going to say that I was valuable enough to go and get in the Hall of Fame? So if I don't know what Trevor's innings were. I mean, I know Trevor was awesome. I know he's a great friend. I know he's a tremendous player. And he was, remarkable to watch. And anytime for me, I'm compared to somebody like that. I mean, I'm in awe because I was in awe of him. But, I think when you talk numbers, which the game is about numbers, I think that speaks for itself. And to me, I feel like at times it was never about a number as much as it was probably my how I communicated. I was not a very good communicator. I was very open with I would do an interview with anybody, and I was opinionated, and I live with what my opinions are. I think trying to be I never backed away. I never backed away during a blown save or a bad game, or I stood up. Maybe I should have backed down and just said some of the things that would have got people off my back, but I was never that guy. But I think that has a bearing on people, how people view me, instead of how they don't know me. I don't think a California guy realizes that in the Philadelphia locker room, I was a good teammate, but I wasn't afraid to call a teammate out, just as they called me out. And so, but I think a lot of things were misconstrued, and I think it's easy for people to sit there and say those things, but it is what it is.
Are you expecting more support to come this year?
I don't know. As much as I, at this point in time, I do interviews and I start to kind of keep up a little bit. I really, I don't know. I don't know how that works. When it first started, it was very frustrating the first couple of years, because, you start to, you're not sure what to expect. And then all of a sudden you're getting input, and then that's their first exposure after years of getting. All of a sudden you're dodging arrows and daggers, because now it's you can't do anything. There's nothing a player can do anymore except sit there and grin and bear it. And so that was the first time. So it was very frustrating. So, but since then, over the last probably 4 years, I've probably stayed less consumed about it. I'll do the interviews, and usually somebody's giving me tidbits. Jesus Ortiz usually gives me an update, who worked with me in Houston, stuff like that, and Richard Justice and guys like that. But to be honest with you, it's more, my kids will give me a little update, or they'll have the MLB station on, and they'll, tell me what stuff. But, I try not to, because, I really appreciate the game, and I don't want to, it's so hard to hear the negatives after there's nothing you can do. And then, when you have people not even voting a full ballot, or I'm okay with, you told me that I sucked and I wasn't very good and they didn't like me. I can appreciate that. It's very hard to appreciate the person who goes, I'm not voting for anybody. I think it's hard, because it's just a very, you don't realize how tough this game is. Ortiz and these guys, you don't realize how, you can't appreciate that.
But do you think there should be a line drawn when it comes to steroid use, or reported steroid use? Do you think that could be an issue?
Well, I think to me, when it first happened and everybody was like, I'm not voting for anybody that had any ties, I think that's went by the wayside. I think, we're not going to, this isn't about going to church. This isn't a church situation. This isn't politically correct. This is best baseball players in that era. Those guys who were tied to or linked or had some type of, article written about them in that, we're past that. If people, Barry Bonds was always going to be good. Clemens was always good. A-Rod was good. Ortiz. There's guys that have been linked to it that are in the Hall of Fame now. I think the thing that bothers me is the fact that we get to pick and choose who's valuable. And it's not a numbers thing. It's an opinionated ethics debate. If that's the case, then why is Pete Rose not in the Hall of Fame? If we're not sitting here, I just, I have, I'm not here to sit here and point fingers, but if they're the best, put them in, be done with it. The steroid era was a terrible situation. And I know that in that 95, 96, 97, 98, when we went through that strike and everything was going back, Major League Baseball knew more about it than they want to put on. But I also know that those guys saved baseball. and they brought people back into the stands, and they did a lot of things, and you know, and I don't condone it, but I also like to think that they had, if these guys are taking this, they had to take it to compete with me, because I never did it, and I didn't have to deal with it, and I had enough belief in myself that I could do this, and I pitched sore and I pitched hurt and all those things, and you know what? If you had to do that, hey, you're doing that because you had to face me.
Did you find it unfair that some guys were on him and you weren't? So was it tougher for you to have to deal with that?
No, because I was too worried about doing my job, to worry about somebody doing their job. If that was the case, and then so be it. Everybody had speculations. Everybody, had ideas of who might have and stuff. But we're, at that point, you still had to compete. I mean, it doesn't matter what we think people had to do. They still had to go out and do their job, and and they did it well. And I don't care if people think Barry did it or not. He was the greatest player I've ever played against. And when we competed, I don't care what he was on. He still had to do his job, and I had to do mine. And, A-Rod, and, I think the biggest problem is the guy who admits it and then then they're getting it's okay, because it really sets a bad example for kids that do something wrong. There's no consequence. I'm still going to get mine no matter what. And so that's the only thing. I can't teach the high school kid that it's not good to do steroids when you can go out and make $300 million and then tell everybody that you did it because there was too much pressure. It's very hard to sit here and tell that kid today that, the kid who's trying to get into college and is taking anxiety medicine and stuff like that, hey, you should probably cheat and do something so you can get that scholarship, or you can get into college and pay for it. And it's you fight that battle with people who don't want to have the consequences and deal with that. And so I think guys had admitted it, they have to deal with that. But I think guys that haven't been really proven guilty, they should really let them, hey, be done with it. Let's move on.
Are you hopeful to get in before your 10 years are up on the ballot?
No, not really. I don't see that happening. I think it'll be close. I think that I'd like to say yes, but I don't see that happening. I think it's just with the 10 people at the boat, with guys coming on and off. I think it'll be very difficult to see that. I mean, maybe I'll get lucky, but Jim Codd, who and these the guys that I've seen here recently, when I read their stories and I see their numbers, I'm almost like, holy cow, these guys' numbers were way more impressive than the guys that actually got into the Hall of Fame now, and they're not getting in. I don't see much hope, but I also do enjoy seeing that some guys are getting their just due, from the players' side of it. So maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe that'll happen for me.
Do you believe that you belong in Cooperstown?
I think my numbers say that I do. I can't really. I'm not one of those guys that's here and pat rub talk about how good I did. I think if you want to know how somebody did, I think you need to talk to the people they played against. Ask those guys who competed. I mean, ask the Walkers, ask the Chipper Joneses, ask the guys who face me all the time, and a Derek Jeter or guys like that. Ask what they thought, because you know what? They know who the better players are. They know who those guys are tough to compete against and who brought it every day. So, I can't pat myself on the back for that, but if the numbers suit, then so be it.
How special would it be to get in for you?
Oh, well, I don't think coming from Southwest Virginia, that was a reasonable thought. Just like being drafted, I don't think you come from a broken home with and living on food stamps and living with your aunt and uncle. You roll out and say, hey, I'm going to probably be a Hall of Famer, or I'm going to play pro ball. I think it was, you kind of just, as it came, you kind of accept it. But what it would mean would be just it'd be gratifying that I could show the younger kids from my area that things are possible, that it's not a silver spoon type situation, and that things are possible, and that you can be a ray of light, and that motivate and inspire some people. And so and it also would mean a lot because of my high school coach, which I think would be he passed, but he was always in my corner, and he probably believed in me more than I believed in myself. So it would be great to kind of honor him with that situation.
Let me ask you this. Do you have any regrets about how your career went, whether you could have played longer to get in the Hall of Fame or how everything played out with this voting too?
No, I don't have any regrets. I played hard. I played as hard as I could. When I ended, I was happy because it was about my family and doing what was right for my family. It was, could I play longer? I don't know. Last game I pitched in, I pulled my oblique. So it's just I don't know if it's something that could have been better. I could have went out the next year. It was kind of like the year I actually said I was retiring. I really told Bobby Cox in confidence that I was going to retire, and that this was going to be it, and that I wasn't going to come back before the season started. And he's the one that kind of said, "Well, he's not coming back," and which I was hoping not to say anything, because I felt like I'm going to do what I do regardless of what I'm doing. And could have very easily had a terrible year. Could have just stunk, and everybody go, well, he's retiring, so he's done and it's not a big deal. Where to me it was retiring because I was just blessed enough to be able to go out on my terms, and not and I think all athletes have that moment that they go, I'm done. And yeah, I have no regrets on leaving and stuff. I went out the way I wanted to do. I played as hard as I could, and I've got to spend more time with my kids and raise my children with me being in it.
How do you explain your dominance in that last year? Not many guys in their last season are putting up an ERA sub 2 and really being a great closer for the Braves.
Well, I tell you, I had some really good players behind me too. Uh, there was a lot of players that just made some big plays. I don't know. That's just what I've always done. I don't know. I don't know what age had to do with any of it. It was just competing. Stepping on the mound was about competing, and sometimes that competitive nature just shows up. And regardless of saying it's over, I still didn't want to go out and just say it's over. I wanted to go out there and do what I've always done. So I don't think that was from the day I stepped on the mound in the big leagues to the day I stepped off of it. My mindset changed on how well I wanted to do.
Billy Wagner, still here on Sports Talk Chicago. Billy, a few more questions before we finish up. First off, is it true that you were a natural right-hander?
Absolutely. I can't do a thing left-handed right now except throw. I eat and write, and it's easier for me to give pitching lessons right-handed than it is left-handed. I don't know what it is. That's just how weird I am right now. But I broke it a couple of times when I was growing up. My elbow and my arm. Played football and on monkey bars and stuff, and it just kind of with that close little thing with how close it was together, I just kind of went to being left-handed and wanted to be with the other kids and play. So I think that just kind of was part of God's plan for me.
How tough was it to learn how to throw left-handed?
Well, I was young, so I don't know if it was hard at all. So I think what's the misconception is that this happened when I was in college. That story sounds way better than what really happened, but I think that being able to at 6, 7, 8 years old, it was I want to play. So whatever it was to play.
Billy, before we finish up today, last question. What was your welcome to the show type moment in Major League Baseball? Maybe one of the first memories you had playing the game.
Well, I think when the rubber met the road for me was 90, I guess it was 96, 97, I think maybe 96. And we're playing in the Astrodome against San Francisco. and you had Matt Williams and Barry Bonds, and a super group there. And I was brought in the game, and I think Bagwell and Biggio made errors. I walked a guy, struck out a guy, and I had bases loaded with Bonds and Matt Williams coming to the plate. And not, being naive is bliss. So Randy Knorr comes out to the mound, and he goes, "Hey, who cares? We're going to throw six fastballs right here, and we're going to the house." It's a 2-1 lead. I mean, how you can't you're not expecting. Most people aren't expecting that I'm going to be able to go out there and punch these guys out, let alone on 6 pitches. And that's pretty much what happened. I went out and threw 6 pitches and struck out 2 of the best hitters at that point. And it was a big thing. I think that it went a long ways. I remember like the looks in the clubhouse, the Bagwells, the Biggios, the Hamptons and Reynolds, the Kyles. They look at you a little different because you were able to go out there and do something that's not seen very often. So I think that was that. Hey, he's all right. And so for all the bumps and bruises and bad outings, those games that I was able to get out there and really do my thing, I think that just that was the bright point.
Well, Billy, thank you so much for joining me. Always a pleasure. Best wishes with the Miller School and with the Hall of Fame ballot this year. I know I'll be tracking it too, but really appreciate the time.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on. It's always fun. Thank you very much.